All right. Hey, everybody. This is Jared Napolitano, aka JNAP. I'm the marketing advocate for the Star Wars CCG Players Committee. I'm going to do a new series, quite simply, how to play Star Wars CCG. This is probably going to be a few parts, but we're going to use GEMP for it, which is an online platform to play Star Wars CCG. Maybe we'll just start with a quick background. So the reason I wanted to do this stream, I see in a lot of places for Star Wars CCG social media, people have cards, they don't really know how to play, they're familiar with the game from 25, 20, 15, whatever, how many years ago, and it's just such a complex game, and unfortunately there's no real conclusive video tutorial out there. There are a few floating around on YouTube, but there just hasn't been one like from the ground up. And the problem is, the reason for this, for a game that's so old, is that it's a complicated game. So it's not one you just sit down and learn in 20 minutes. It's one that requires a little time investment. But as someone who loves the game and doesn't really play many other games, I think it's worth it. There's definitely a couple different avenues you can go in approaching and learning it. But some people learned way back when they had physical cards, and then as new sets and expansions and mechanics came into the game, they just kept layering on their knowledge. But right now there's almost 3,500 unique cards in the game. Most, or I shouldn't say most, majority are Decipher cards that were made between 1995 and 2001. And then a lot have been from the Players Committee, which there was a whole wave that were made between 2002 and 2014. And there was a reset in 2014. And then so for the past 7 years, there's been about 18 virtual card sets that have come out that have just layered on new cards and mechanics. So the moral is that it can be a very intimidating game to come into and learn. But hopefully this guide, a couple things I can point to, a couple resources, and kind of seeing this in action can help some people. And I think one of the things that really triggered me to explore this avenue was this new format of Star Wars CCG called All of the Jedi. And this came up, Idea Track, this is a username Lyndon, as a British player. He came up with the idea, and then Adam, Echo Base Trooper, who is one of the GEMP developers. GEMP is this platform, which, if you're unfamiliar, is an absolute amazing tool that's been great for the game. But it's a new format, and basically what it is here's a bunch of packs, open the packs, make some decks, and play. And it's very simple and straightforward. And when I heard of the format, it's a lot of fun for me, even though someone that plays the open format, and open is just all the cards ever made basically are available to build a constructed deck. It's kind of cool to kind of simplify the game, and it's really good, I think, for a learning perspective. So we're basically going to join a league that is All the Jedi. We're going to get a bunch of cards. We're going to open them, and we're going to talk through some things, and then eventually build some decks. And this might be, I don't know if it's going to be 3 parts or 10 parts, whatever it is. Hopefully it's effective in the end to help someone learn how to play, perhaps from scratch. And I'm doing this on my personal Twitch, but what I'll do is eventually, maybe there might be some editing and merging some things together, or maybe cutting out some stuff that isn't necessary, and put it on the official PC YouTube channel, which you can see the URL for that on the scroll at the bottom. So first off, I have my screen here. So I have GEMP. Like I mentioned, here's the official YouTube page. There's actually is a featured video in here called How to Play Star Wars CCG. It's one of the featured videos. It's the 4th one here. It doesn't use virtual cards. It might, which same with All the Jedi will not use virtual cards. So it's more the old school cards. But that's just that for posterity. Also, so we have StarWarsCCG.org, which is the official website of the Players Committee, which took over as stewards of the game back in 2002. There's a lot of rules for this game. There's been a lot of rule booklets released over time. There's been a lot of errata that have taken down the power level or removed some unintended interactions from the game. They're all stored here. We're going to try to approach this from the simplest way possible so that people can build up into learning the game. But the two important documents here are this advanced rulebook and the beginner's rulebook. And the beginner's rulebook is here, and I would suggest either reading this before, after, concurrent, some type of conjunction with these videos, because it'll help bring a lot of what I talk about into focus. You'll hear a lot of terms here. Some things I apologize if I take for granted, some acronyms. Hopefully I don't use too many of them. But this is basically the key phases of the game, basic interactions, hopefully things that are pretty simple. So frankly, if I were you, I would probably pause this, read this 6-page document. A lot of it might not make sense. That's okay. You can go back to it from time to time throughout these videos or after the fact. But I would have this handy, and it's right on the starwarsccg.org/rules. And then what scares people is that there's the advanced rule book for Star Wars CCG. Now, don't get intimidated. This is 172 pages. It is the culmination of 26 years worth of unique aspects. And what I tell people is that really, I think it's only maybe like 70 pages are stuff that come up most of the time. And then there's like another like 100 pages that are very unique, nuanced situations. And things that get very particular, especially in like open format, and are things that you won't need if you're just learning the game. But also, I would say, don't be scared. I'd also say, hey, the way you read a novel or a book sometimes, maybe 10 minutes before you go to bed, 20 minutes before you go to bed at night, I would take like a week and just read like 10 pages of this. And a lot of it won't make sense at first, but I would just do a pass. And then as you watch these videos, maybe occasionally come back to these and it'll make sense. When I came back, I played the game, as quick background, from when Dagobah came out in 1997 through like 2002. I went to college, or high school at that point, but late in high school, college, didn't play. I think I played in one tournament in 2007, but I basically was off from the game from 2002 through 2017. So I came back in 2017. And one of the things I did, I think maybe 6 months after I came back and started getting interested again, was I just read this. And it really helps with a lot of things. And yeah, it's definitely a lot to digest, but if you kind of take a piecemeal, kind of acknowledge, hey, this game is really cool. A lot of people like it. It's done a lot of success. It's becoming very popular. I want to make kind of a time investment and learn it. So I think that if you spend an hour, 2 hours, even 3 hours learning it through these 2 documents, that's time well spent and it'll help you learn things the right way, which is where GEMP is really cool, because this online platform is rules enforced. So that's, I think, one of the best things about it, especially for new and returning players, is you don't need to know all the rules to play this complicated yet beautiful and complex card game. You just kind of could get started a little bit. There's sample decks you can play, and there's options. Anything you could possibly do at any time lights up. You could turn that option off, but a lot of people keep it on. So it guides you towards playing the game and playing it the right way, because it's rules enforced. You're still gonna have to make decisions, a lot of decisions really, but at least you won't do illegal actions that if you were in a sanctioned event, that would be illegal. So here we have GEMP, and now we'll get started. So we're about, just so I'm keeping this track, so about 9 minutes in. So hopefully I didn't lose anybody yet. Hopefully if you're interested in the game, you found some cards in your attic, you inherited a collection, you're still here. So what we're gonna do, I'm on my JNAP how-to alternate account. I'm going to go to this All the Jedi sealed. So the Leagues tab, All the Jedi, and I'm going to click Join. And it costs 5 gold, which pretty much everyone should have. And I look at all these packs show up. Now, if you're someone who's vaguely familiar with Star Wars CCG, getting packs, opening packs, a lot of the fun in collecting and playing. So here we have, and we're going to have 2 packs. I think it's 2. You might start with 1 and then get another round, or you might just get 2 of everything the first round. I think it's 2 of everything the first round, and you get to open them and you see the rares, the different cards. So here's every expansion. It's not all the premium cards that are kind of like mini sets, so to speak, but these are like the big guys. One thing I'd recommend, starwarsccg.org/collecting has a collecting encyclopedia. So if you're a collector, that's a really cool resource. That'll kind of bring some of this in play. If you're interested in learning, like, when did Premiere come out? Is this the right chronology? Which it is. This is how the sets came out, from 1995 December, which is Premiere, this black pack, all the way through Reflections 3. Actually, it isn't completely, because Steed Palace is the 4th one in the second row. That was actually the very last set. But the Reflections are kind of like pseudo premium sets and expansion sets, because they have foils and premium cards. But bottom line is, you get a bunch of cards. A couple of these cards you see here are like staples. They're cards that just help facilitate a normal game, and we'll get into them. One thing that I think Lenny Rubin said in one of his Shields primer is, well, what do the cards do? Well, the cards do what they say they do, which sounds really simple, but every card has game text at the bottom part of it, or sometimes in locations on other parts, that tell you what the card does. Now, you have to know kind of the structure of the game and when you're allowed to quote-unquote play cards, but a lot of the time the card tells you what to do. Now, there's some a lot of recurring phrases that you're definitely going to want to learn to or have to know, but that is where that's where the nuance and the beauty. Like I said, I think there's about 3,400 games, 3,400 cards. Sorry. So I think I'm in the league now. I just clicked off a different tab. Yeah. So now it says you are already a member of this league. So a little of this will overlap with like how to play on GEMP. So here I go back to the game hall. I'm going to go in this deck builder on the middle left here because I don't think you guys can see my mouse cursor. So now I'm in the deck builder, and at this one drop down in the top middle, I'm going to click My Cards instead of All Cards. And you can see I have a few cards. Oh no, I don't want to click that. I actually want to click on All the Jedi Sealed, which is the league that I just joined. So you get these cards, you get these packs, and they're specific for this league. Once the league is done, these cards go away. You won't have access to them again. You also, there's a lot of stuff here with GEMP that we're not going to get into because it's not necessary, but to build your decks, and like I said, we're going to try to simulate basically, let's say you found a bunch of cards in your attic, and you want to play with a buddy. So it's going to be a matter of building decks out. Let me move my me. All right, so we have a bunch of these cards. You can see there's like a 1 in really small print in the middle of each card. That's how many copies are in here. And we only have these 6 kind of fixed cards for the format. Now you go here in the drop down, it's in the top right here where it says product cards. You're going to click pack/boxes. And yes, we in fact have 2 packs of, as was my suspicion, of each format, or of each set. So there's 15 total. So here's the cool part. You're a collector, this is going to be familiar, cracking open packs. And we'll see what we'll get. So I'm trying to balance a lot of things here. I'm trying not to overwhelm, but also talk through things, and then eventually we'll get into gameplay. But in terms of what the cards do, what cards are like, I'll try to simplify that as much as possible. So I just know that Premiere down here says Premiere is the first set. So we'll open that first. Would you like to open this packer box? So I'll hit OK. And we just open up a pack. So get a bunch of cards, a bunch of different colors. In a nutshell, and this is where the beginner's rulebook will come in, just to give you some frame of reference. One player plays as dark side, one plays as light side. You put a bunch of cards in your deck. Usually it's 60. This format, if they're like sealed formats, they're usually more like 40. But most of games are played with 60 card decks. The dark cards have these more solid, whereas light has these like faded, broken up backgrounds. And you're going to see white, you're going to see black backgrounds, you're going to see red, you're going to see blue, you're going to see green. So we could talk through a lot of that. I just know off the top of my head that the rare card in this pack, as CCGs are, there's always the chase card, and then there's lots of commons and uncommons. There are plenty of commons that are very good cards. A lot of the times, though, a lot of good decks use a lot of rares and premium cards. So we have a couple interrupts, and what interrupts are these red cards, like in the top left with this picture with Vader and Owen Lars. And the way the interrupts work is you basically just play them kind of, spontaneously, perhaps, as opposed to some of these more noun cards like this Jawa or this Alien Cabe. They're noun cards that you put into play. So again, this is where the beginner's rulebook will say a lot of the stuff better than I will, but more or less you have your deck, your one side's light, one's dark, and your basic goal is to put cards down, cause the opponent to lose cards or lose force, and eventually have more cards left in the end than your opponent's life force, which is all their cards face down, is completely eliminated. And there's 3 general ways to cause damage, cause your opponent to lose force. One is battles. So you're going to have a bunch of, I'll call them nouns, characters, starships, vehicles, that can have weapons, for example, or hold devices. And they're like the tools that battle against each other. I think other games, maybe Magic uses the phrase combat, but basically you have nouns that battle against each other, and you do some math, and one side has to lose, cards or force to make up for that difference, and that's how you deplete the cards off the table, which is the in play, we'll say, or from their life force, which is like their reserve. That starts at 40 to 60. So, and then also the second means to cause your opponent to lose force is force drain, and what that basically is you have nouns at a location, and your opponent does not, and therefore you can basically say, hey, you got to lose force because I have people here and you don't. So that's one of the ways to promote interaction and battles. Battles are often perceived to be, the fun part of Star Wars CCG, of putting your people against your opponent's people and having some tricks like interrupts in the battle and using weapons and removing your opponent's cards from play. So that's just a quick thing. I shouldn't say quick. It's going to be a lot to this, but again, the beginner's rulebook does go through a lot of this stuff about card types, life force, the phases of the game, a lot of things that are we know like the back of our hand. People that have played a while, different icons, but as I go here, so that's our first pack. Nothing really great here. An X-wing and a Y-wing. These are kind of cool. Again, this is a very simple format, so some cards that you would never use in an open competitive constructed deck are actually, make sense to play in this all of the Jedi format. And it's good for casual players, people that just want to have fun, play the game, like Star Wars, like games in general. But it's not you're not overwhelmed with like super powerful cards or cards that do a lot of different nuanced things. And here we have this pack. We have a TIE Fighter here, Black 3, a location, the Jawa camp where the Stormtroopers took care of the Jawas. We got a mine, a blaster, so weapons. Green cards are weapons or devices. Blue cards are starships, vehicles. So yeah, nothing too exciting in this pack either. The cool thing about opening these packs in this format, sometimes you get some main characters that are really strong that you can use. And they kind of shine above in this format because not everyone has them. So we're going to go to now A New Hope, which is the purple pack. This was the first expansion, whereas Premiere was like the base set. It's often referred to. We have Greedo, who could forget Greedo. Greedo shot first. Tyree, who's like a rebel pilot. A couple different things here. These things are all kind of randomized. When we start building our decks, it'll kind of come into focus how things should be grouped and what cards are like other cards. But when you open these packs, it's kind of randomized. So we're going through, and I'll just try to call out if there's any like really cool cards that are kind of no-brainers to include as I open up another one. We get Red 5, which is Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, of course, which is, plays up, it's even stronger if you have a Luke, which we don't have yet, but not a bad card as is. Officer Efax is a good card, is an Imperial. Undercover's, a sneaky card, really good in a format that's limited because it is pretty strong and there's not a lot of counterplay to it. So we did A New Hope, which was the second. Now we'll do Hoth. These things followed the chronology of the original trilogy. And I don't know where my Hoth went. Where'd my Hoth pack go? See, now this happens sometimes where they don't pop up. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so we have the Hoth Echo Command Center, which is a good location because it's 2 icons versus 0. We'll get into that. Ice Storm, the third marker. This to this day is still a very, very powerful location for the dark side. Third marker, Echo Base Trooper. Shout out to Adam, who is like the prime, one of the primary or one of the two primary Jump developers who creates new cards and fixes bugs and does a lot of stuff that keeps Jump going. So we have Probe Droid here, a couple different things. So that's their Hoth ones. I guess I missed the first Hoth one. Hopefully we didn't get anything too good. But it'll show up when we build our decks. So let's see. Then we need, what comes after Hoth? Dagobah, 1997. They switched to 9-card packs. Nothing really cool here. There's a lot of cards in Dagobah that are not good. Creatures especially. We have the Swamp, or not the Swamp, the Space Slug Belly. We have Anuet System. This is kind of a cool card that lead advocate Scott Lingerell likes to play. I have a bad feeling about this. Let's see. Second Dagobah. Another Vine Snake. Asteroid Field. Controls a strong card here with Vader. Broken Concentration is a good card. So it's the rare. Keep opening these. Dagobah. What comes after Dagobah? Cloud City, of course. Princess Leia, that's a good card. So you got a main character. So she's good, but you can only put her on Hoth or on Cloud City. So it's a deployment restriction. Can't just put her at any location, but she's got ability 4, which is good for shield formats. This is, let's see, second Cloud City. Cloud City, I think, has the best art in the game. Surprise, this is the dark side equivalent card. It does the exact same thing. That I have a bad feeling about this with the picture with Leia. and the Space Slug Belly does. Kind of cool card. We got Sabak, which is like Star Wars CCG poker, basically, or a blackjack, I guess it is. It's like a game within a game. That's kind of cool. After Cloud City came Jabba's Palace. We got a Destiny 7. This Destiny is the card on the top right, and that it's probably one of the biggest ways to introduce chance and randomness in the game. That's one of the cool things about the game is that you have good experienced players, and you have new players, and there are ways to try to level the playing field. And one of them is this chance with Destiny, which can be mitigated in deck construction and tracking, so you can follow kind of track. But those are complicated things that we're not going to get into in this video. Let's open our second Jabba's Palace expansion. Oh, we got Jabba the Hutt. That's a good one. He'll be a good card in this format. Gamorrean Guard, some locations, the Droid Workshop, and what comes after Jabba's Palace? Special Edition. This was a huge set. Just like Premiere, it was 324 cards. You got Cloud City location, and it kind of has cards that span a lot of different locations since it was built off the Special Edition release of Star Wars and pulled in, a lot of the enhancements. It was a very wide ranging set. We have a weapon here. We have another Rodian. Nothing too crazy here. Masterful Move. That Destiny 6 card with the Dejark. Very strong card, especially in this format. It's a Destiny 6. High Destiny good. Usually it's, I don't have only one red card here. So I got Vader's Personal Shuttle. That's kind of cool. A Dewback. Y-Wing. Ryle Torsen. Special Edition. After Special Edition comes Endor. Middle of Return of the Jedi. We got a Rebel Sergeant Bruckman. Throw Me Another Charge is a pretty good card for this format, since it's a high Destiny card that you can just put back into your reserve deck, and that's a very strong mechanic to put down a high Destiny and know where it is. Another Endor. A couple more locations. The Endor system. We have a YT-1300 transport. Another Rebel Lieutenant Page is our rare card. Each pack contains one rare, usually around 3 uncommon, 5 common. These are the newer sets, and then the early sets were 15 cards, like Premiere, New Hope, Hoth. Here's Death Star 2. This was a very impactful set. The most popular alternative format, we'll say, on Jemp is Premiere through Death Star 2, so it's everything up through this expansion. It's considered a little balanced. It doesn't have some of the NPE or negative play experience aspects that some of the older sets have. I'm actually not sure what the rare is in here. It might be this Mon Calamari character. It's not, maybe it's Obsidian 10. And yeah, this card. So these are Admiral's Order. This is a unique type of a card type. We got some more starship weapons. We got the central core or reactor core of the Death Star 2. A couple Y-Wings, a couple TIE Fighters. Nothing too crazy. And now we'll do Tatooine next. Was when Decipher went into episode 1. This came out in May of 2001. Nothing too great here. A lot of red cards. Red cards are either effects or interrupts, and they're not nouns, so to speak. Like I was talking about before, they're not like people you can put down. So in sealed formats, and you always want to balance. Like in constructed formats, you usually have 20, 25 characters. Maybe 5 starships or so, a handful of weapons, and then maybe 20, 25 interrupts, maybe 15, and usually 5 to 10 effects. But in these types of formats, you want more nouns, so you're going to be even a greater proportion of characters. It's our second Tatooine pack. We have a unique, which means there can only be one a copy of this card on the table and play at the same time, as opposed to non-unique. Like you can have this Eopie here, which could be, you can have 5 Eopies on the table if you want. We got Sebulba's Pod Racer. Pod racing is a separate, more complicated mechanic. We're not going to get into that. And then we got Coruscant. This was released in September of 2001. We got the Senate Objective. Probably not going to be doing objectives, which are these purple cards in the top right. They're another layer of complexity that the game added. This is a really strong card, Battle Order and First Strike, which is the first card here, the rare. That's probably going to make it into our deck. This is also kind of strong. This picture of Watto. It's actually popular in an open deck right now, open format. Coruscant's very limited print run. There's not a lot of a destroyer droid. That's good. You got a senator. The Naboo Swamp. And let's see. Thief Palace. This was the last expansion before Decipher lost the license. We got another Admiral's Order. Admiral's Orders have really cool images. And they're kind of like effects where you just deploy them on the table, but a couple differences as well. Lieutenant Chamberlain. Well, he seems like a good character. Power 4. Got a Tank Commander. And we'll look up our last lead. Corporal Rushing. I like this guy. I had him in the last all the Jedi format that I did. He really good ratios. So like the stats on this card, his power, his ability, his deploy, his forfeit. Again, I recommend the beginner's rule book to kind of get familiar with some of these terms. His destiny's good, and he's really good in this format since he has good stats. Got a Naboo defense fighter here. And now we have some reflections cards or sets. So these are cool because they include cards across a bunch of different sets. They also have foil cards, which are like chase cards. They look cooler, in my opinion. But these expansions, they had some premium cards. A lot going on with these ones. So we got a foil Big Starklighter. We got Princess Leia Organa, who's not as good. She has to deploy as a captive, which is a mechanic we're probably not going to get into. Nothing too great in here. Projective Telepathy might be a cool card in this format, especially since we got Battle Order. And we'll get into that. Again, a lot of these cards, it looks daunting, it looks overwhelming, but most of the time you read what the card does after you know the mechanics. A lot of times they might cancel other cards. They might add cost to certain things. They might modify things that you already know. So it's just a matter of kind of getting through that. It is a steep learning curve, but once you kind of hit it, you can pick up some momentum. The foil in this is Skywalkers, which is Luke and Leia on the... This is a card I really like, even in open play. It's strong. Another Destiny 7 double laser cannon. Rug Hug. And these Reflections expansions have cards that are rares, cards that are commons, cards that are in all different sets. They have fixed cards, like the Farm is a F card, which is not really common, but also not hard to get. They print out a lot of them. Decipher. So now we'll do Reflections 2. Now Reflections 2 has premium cards and foils and rares. There's a lot going on here. Downtown Plaza, Downcloud City. This is a good location. Dark Jedi Presence. This is good, but we're probably not going to be using it because we need some Dark Jedi, which are rare and hard to acquire. Rebel Snowspeeder is our foil. This is actually a Japanese card, but there's not Japanese cards programmed on Gem. So Reflections 2. We got the Executor. That's cool. That's a good card to have in this format. Really strong, lots of power. Lightside Destiny 7 Strangle. We got Vader's TIE Fighter. Really strong if you got Vader in it. Probably want Vader on the ground. We got another purple card. Won't be using that. A Few Maneuvers is good because it's a Destiny 6 that you can play almost any time as long as there's a starship on the table. And that means you have a 6 that's going face down that you can follow that around and then draw it for Destiny. And drawing high cards for Destiny when you know what they are is a very strong mechanic. All right, we go to Reflections 3, which have these blue cards on the bottom, which are shields. We're not going to be using them in this format. We got TC-14, Trooper Sabak, a Y-Wing, an Asteroid Field. Nothing really too great here. And our last pack, another Executor. So usually you're probably not going to want 2 Executors. So there's an objective here. So I would say all in all, this is not the best pull, which is probably the one thing against all the Jedi. But like I said, it's usually not ultra competitive people. It's usually people just want to play the game. I don't think we're going to do too well, even if I think I'm a decent player, but we don't have a lot to work with here, to be honest. So, but we're still going to play. But we got 2 Executors. Some people call it Executor. Hot topic for debate. All right, so we have opened all our cards. Again, kind of like simulating, like, hey, found all these cards that were in a box you never played, you just collected. Let's build a deck. So, a lot of this stuff I could do a lot quicker because I'm just familiar with deck building and the game. So a lot of this will be kind of on fast forward versus if you're someone who's new. But hopefully it can just serve as an example. And again, I recommend kind of toggling with the beginner's rulebook a lot as we go through this process. So we'll say all of the Jedi, dark side. So we'll make a new deck. We'll save it, and now we can do a filter over here, and we'll just filter for dark cards. And some people will go through the cards and kind of build up to their deck. What I usually do, I'm not a big time sealed player, but what I'll kind of do is put all the cards I have into the deck and then just start whittling them down. You can rule out, because there's a lot of cards like you're just not going to be able to use. They might work only with other cards. You generally don't want to play 2 locations. Especially with a 40 card deck. I definitely think we're going to get to the point where we we have to make some tough decisions on what cards to cut and what will be helpful and what won't. So as I'm going through here, it's kind of a tedious process. Maybe I'll kind of cut this out once I do the editing. Not the best streaming stuff. So again, in the middle of each card here, it tells you how many copies. So what you could do too with Jemp is you can always save your deck list. So even though the league might go away and you might not be able to access, I don't know. It might remove your decks. Either way, you can always save it kind of middle of the event and just have it. And then maybe, conceivably we could like simulate like a sealed deck format, and you could do something like this on Jemp, and then people can pull the cards from their collection and play. That was thrown out as an idea at one point, which would be interesting since sealed product for Star Wars CCG is extremely expensive nowadays, as are a lot of collectibles. So building up here in the bottom left, you can see we're at 159 cards already. We'll be able to cut these down pretty quickly, or at least I will. And then hopefully, if you're new, you want to try to replicate this process. You are not going to be able to go as fast if you're brand new to the game, but hopefully some of the tips I point out help you go a little quicker than you might otherwise. All right. We have 208 cards. Now you hit save, and then you can click this open button, which is the third one here, and we can open it, which will then sort it, which is very helpful. So we have a lot of cards. So they're probably very small, very hard for you to see. But we can start cutting this down quickly. So first off, we literally cannot play shields because you need a particular card to play it. Plus, even if you did have that one card and got it in Reflections 3, it might not even be worth the card slot. So we can eliminate these blue-green cards here that you'll see go away. Other easy cuts, Pod Racer down here, Sebulba. You see this red? Remember, these are all sorted, but these red cards are down here because they're a different type. They say Pod Racer in the middle. We're going to remove them because you need you need like the Pod Race Arena, which we don't have. You need the Pod Racing Starting Interrupt, which we don't have. So we'll just remove that. That's easy. A lot of these cards, like for example, like Dark Jedi Presence, we don't have any Dark Jedi, which would be like a Vader or an Emperor. So we're just going to remove Dark Jedi Presence, which is this card with Vader standing ominously. Watto's Chance Cube. This card doesn't really make any sense to play unless you have Watto. We don't have Watto. So let's remove those. Let's look at the locations. So you can't deploy these Death Star 2 sectors unless you have Death Star 2. So we'll remove them. We'll remove this Agents of Black Sun, this purple card down here, this objective. We're not going to play that. We have 2 Kifex. You would never really want to play 2 Kifex. So we'll definitely remove at least one for now. This card requires you to have a capital starship armed with a starship weapon. We don't have any. Well, we have this, but this isn't that good. It doesn't even hit. This is a starship weapon, but it doesn't hit. It's not very good. So we can remove that. We can remove the interrupt that's associated with it. This card here, this Admiral's Order, non-pilot characters. I don't really think that's going to come into play. And I'm not going to take the most scientific approach to this and agonize every decision, but there's definitely some ways we can cut this down quickly. So, and I would recommend saving occasionally too, because if you were to just X out of this window, you would not retain any of your changes. Vine Snake, we can remove them. They stink. They're very weak characters, or weak creatures, I should say. Probe Droid Antenna. This is a really niche card, as is Hypo. Get rid of that. It's easy. We don't want all these locations because locations are Destiny 0. So you want to find a balance of having places to deploy people and battle at, but you don't want to have too many. So like pretty much any 1-0 can go away. 1-0 meaning you have one dark side icon and no light side. They're just not very helpful cards. Like this card, for example, deploy on large moisture farm. We don't even have that card. We don't have that location, so you can just remove that. There is a light side version of it, but you don't want to put a card in your deck that's contingent on your opponent playing a certain card. This card we might actually use because Scramble is a light side card that's really strong in this format, like really strong. So we might leave that. Let's see, we still have way too many. Locations are usually like the easiest to cut. Jawa Camp kind of stinks. We'll get rid of that. A 1/1 location here. The idea with locations is you want force that you activate. You want to be able to activate force, so the more icons the better, but also they become liabilities because your opponent can take over the location and then force drain you for 2, for example, if it's a 2 icon one. So it's a trade-off of having, we don't want the Space Slug Belly, that kind of stinks, but a trade-off of having cards that activate force for you, but that don't become liabilities. So you have Endor. Now HUD is kind of good because it is a 2/1, and if your opponent controls it, it's force drain -1. So it gives you the icons that are good, but it has less of a drawback. So let's see. Oh boy, there's a lot to do here. Any card which may not satisfy, we'll take it. We'll get rid of that. Again, I'm kind of just going to remove a bunch of cards that I know aren't really helpful or good. And I can remove a bunch of these. So I'm just going to kind of go rapid fire. Droids are, any card with this icon in the top left. Right, again, refer to the beginner's rulebook for stuff like that. But droids are not usually very good. They're not good at fighting. They can't occupy a location and therefore allow you to force drain. So they have some limited capabilities. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, there's a little lag there for a second. I don't even know what this card is. Let's see. Power plus 5. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. That guy's bad. It's the ability. His ability too. Destroyer Droid's kind of cool. This is weird. When I do that pop up, I could see it on the streaming software, but I can't actually see it on my screen. Okay. Yeah, he's not a good card. You want, for shield formats, you want cards that have good deploy forfeit ratio. So you always want this in the bottom left here, this white number in the bottom left corner to be low as possible. And you want the black number black box with a white number to be as high as possible. Higher power, higher ability are good. Higher destiny is always good. But knowing that a lot of strong cards have low destiny, it's kind of one of the trade-offs with the game. Yeah, I'm just going to keep removing cards I know that aren't good. Outflanked. Anybody else? Yeah, forget that. So frankly, you might want to, again, fast forward. I know this isn't, I might even edit this out, but just kind of building a deck here. Not always the most exciting. We have Wada's box. Yeah, that at least a pod racing, we don't need that. That card's kind of good. So we gotta get this down to 40. Whew, that might take a while. All right, so again, I'm just moving cards that are bad. Do back. And the cool thing about this format is it kind of makes you sometimes wonder, like, oh, maybe this card isn't terrible, or what does that card do? Let's see. Save. Yeah. Gamarian. what I'll do is whenever this gets exported, I'll definitely put a timestamp on so people can understand when I'm just kind of doing this boring deck building process. Yeah, card's not good. We have a lot of Cloud City sites. That might be where we end up for the most part. I can't believe we have 2 executors. Starships that don't have permanent pilots, they're like the way this yellow icon. A little less strong because then you need to have another card to put with them. So there's some value. Somebody once called this card John Madden in a bathrobe, which is pretty funny. Not a bad character, but you generally want a lot of ability 2 or more. Characters that are ability 1 are not very helpful in this format because you want to just pair up 2 guys because ability 4 is a key thing you want to get to so they can draw Battle Destiny, which is something we'll get into during the game. I kind of feel like with a 40 card deck, you probably want around 18 to 20 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4. $22. Excuse me. This card might be worth floating, even though it impacts Tatooine sites, which we don't have any of, but a lot of light cards use it. Yeah, it's probably not worth it. Yeah, let's get rid of it. Part of the Empire, search and destroy. Maybe. Huh. These are combo cards, they're called. Sometimes they combine 2 interrupts. Individually, the card might not be worth playing, but if you pair it up, let's see, a bunch of ties. What is the worst tie here? Maybe this one. Yeah. Let's get rid of that. My computer's skipping a little bit. Yeah, we'll do that. I think we're set on starships, on weapons. Yeah, let's get a weapon. Good to have. For 7 locations, I think is good. Oops. We do not want to get rid of that one. So you can type in and make sure we put it back in. We're at 62. We're getting there. We're almost there. O switch off. We don't need that. Let's see, what else can we get rid of? A lot of these cards, you read them, you're like, oh, that'd be kind of cool if I pull it off. But in a game, they're not, worth it usually. So yeah, I guess all these characters are me. Septoid Droid. That'll be fun. That's a unique card. That might card. That'd be kind of helpful. We're gonna put a few. Ooh, this is good. If you have not deployed an objective, push on battleground site related to your strike location. Okay, I like that. Yeah, let's do that. Get some extra activation. It's a good card. That's a definite one we want to include. Sense, probably not. Or Sith Fury. Tequila might be a little too niche. Tequila. Weapon Lev. 54. See, this is the thing. Even though we didn't have that many good cards, I still got to cut 14 more cards from this. And a lot of these are kind of good. That's probably not worth it. Scramble. Yeah, I don't think we need scramble. All right. Take some risks here. Characters 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so we could still probably remove a character or two. That's really bad. But yeah, as you're doing this, as you get cards, read them. For the most part, if you have a main character, like a Luke or a Leia, it's probably a good card. If you're in a Jedi, they're generally good. Let's open this up again. I like to save reopen because then you get that sort. Sometimes it gets. We got to remove 9 more cards. You got a few battle droids. Remove a few more. Sacrifice is a good card. Let's see. No, actually that one I think we want. Maybe we'll get rid of this. The other cool thing about sealed formats on Gem is that once per game you can get a location out from your reserve deck, which is very helpful just to kind of move the game along, make sure locations are out, accessible, especially ones that both players can put their people to. If there's no icons, you can't deploy it unless you have a spy. Let's see. Yeah, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Can't imagine that's going to come into play. We have a few ties. So we'll play both of the executors. 4, 5, 6. This guy's pretty bad. I'll get rid of him. Dathcha only deploys on Tatooine. Yeah, we don't have any Tatooine sites, so let's get rid of him. Need to cut 4 more cards. Maybe we'll get rid of one of these bad battle droids. Yeah, let's get rid of the battle droid officer. And then, yeah, let's get rid of this. Weapons are usually better if they reduce forfeit to 0, which will say on the card for hit and forfeit 0. If they can't do that, they're not usually very worth including. I'll get rid of one more ship. All right, we gotta cut one more card. Let's see, what should we get rid of? Here, Rapper Tooney. What When present, adds X opponent must use to initiate battle. I don't know what Timo plays a lot. So Timo's a very active player. I know he does a lot of sealed. I wonder if 5 locations is acceptable. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm going to do is probably start the security tower. You've not deployed 1 battleground. And then play combat readiness as a starting interrupt to get out the West Gallery, which is another Cloud City site, which means I'll have 3 icons to start, give away 1. And you know what would be better for that? It's probably the North Ridge. Yeah, let's do that. And then we'll pull out, because the 3rd marker here is a very strong location. Defensive perimeter, also known as. We just got to hope the opponent. Locations can be converted if both players, there's a lot of like locations that both sides have 1 of, and you can convert it, which is just kind of like replacing the one that the opponent has out. Yeah, I think that's about it. All right, let's just cut 1 more. We'll do Passel. All right, so F40 card down here in the bottom left, it says our form. It's green, it's valid. Cool, we have a deck. So we now have a dark side, all the Jedi deck. What I'll probably do is maybe do a similar process for light. Again, I'll probably just, I'm going to just do that offline and then just talk about it after the fact rather than even film it. But we just did some deck building. Again, a lot of that's going to be like light speed for people who aren't familiar with the cards, but more or less this is kind of like a ratio you want to end up with in this format. Again, this is not like constructed, but I think it's a good format to kind of reintroduce people to the game, especially people that have some exposure to the cards from a collector standpoint, where they probably have somewhat of an idea of what good cards are. This whole thing down here at cards outside the deck, that's not relevant for this format. That's when things get a little more complicated. So don't stress that if you're starting. So we have all the Jedi. Let me close this. Go here. Oh, there's the 1 Hoth pack that we didn't see. We can hit refresh on my browser. So now I have this deck available. And the thing is, I would love to play this. I wonder... So the thing is, I'm probably going to play pretty slow because I want to talk through stuff. So I need to play with someone who's going to be very patient, or else they're going to be like, why are you playing so slow? And even maybe run out of time, because there is time. But maybe what we'll do here, again, this is kind of working through some of this stuff. I might just chop this, off the program because it might not be super helpful. But yeah, ideally, I'll post a game. Maybe I'll try to find somebody. But this is part 1. We might have several parts. I'll probably try to merge them together. So I might film 20 minutes here or 2 hours here, and try to merge them all together so that it has some flow to it, and that no one episode is super small or one is super large. But that's the nuts and bolts of getting cards, narrowing them down into a playable deck. Maybe what I'll do here is just talk through. So we have the beginner's rulebook. The 2nd edition, this was released less than a year. A couple months ago. It was just updated. That's great. Starting the game, phases in a turn, card types, battling, movement. And again, hopefully you guys took a pass through this, kind of got an idea on how do you start the game, how does it start, how do you win, you draw a hand. All this stuff is all like enforced on GEMP, so it'll kind of prompt you to go through all of it. How do you lay out your cards? What's a lost pile? What's a reserve deck? How do I do stuff, more or less? And you have the phases. This is really important. The alternating turns, alternating actions. Activate, control, deploy, battle, move, draw. That is, those are the 6 phases that every game of Star Wars CCG has. Here's like a sample layout. Here we have these locations in the middle you can see. And then you have these nouns like I talked about. They have Vader and Obi-Wan. And you have the different life forces and lost piles and the table, so to speak, cards that are in play. Any card that's face up is on the table. Cards that are in your life force are face down. So you see the backs of these, light side deck in the top left with the gray. Dark side deck in the navy with the Imperial symbol. Here's all the stuff we talked about a little, touched upon, I should say. Characters, devices, effects. These are all icons that are in the top left corner. Objectives, what the different stats are on each card. Drawing destiny, how to draw destiny, battling, damage segment, battle. Oh, excuse me. Battle phase is probably the most involved. Generally, the way I would sum up the phases, so activate is basically you're getting paid. Let's say you get your allowance for the turn. Okay, you get a bunch of money to spend. Control, you kind of look at, all right, what's my board state? Am I dominating any location? If I'm at a location my opponent isn't, they got to lose force. Deploy phase is you're basically putting cards to the table. You're putting your nouns out, which I'll go up here. So at deploy phase, you're putting your cards on the table that are either going to battle or, again, threaten more damage that your opponent kind of needs to react to. Battle is when you have you and your opponent both have characters or starships at the same location, and that you are going to just kind of compare your power to their power, and maybe hit some people with weapons, and the benefits of that. Move, then you can move your nouns, like I said, around different locations. As long as they're like related, you can't easily move somebody from Hoth to Tatooine or from Bespin to Naboo. And then you have draw phase, which is kind of like you're replenishing your stock of things to put into play, and different interrupts that you can use to kind of add some, we'll say, spice to the game. So yeah, definitely recommend reading this. The advanced rulebook gets into all this at a much more detailed level. You know, these different phases, what all these different terms are. It looks like a ton, I know, but just don't get discouraged. It's a game that's going to require a lot of reps, a lot of getting used to. But we have a really strong community. People have been playing this game for a long time because it's very rewarding and it's very interesting. And honestly, like, people are still kind of discovering new interactions, coming up with new deck ideas, even for the older cards, not necessarily even the new cards that have been released to the Players Committee virtual card system. Even the old cards, sometimes you can teach old dog new tricks. But yeah, here's this is the advanced rulebook. It's very dense and it includes a lot of examples. It has a whole glossary. It has a lot of like specific rulings for certain cards. So there's a lot in here that's, you look at it like a dictionary. You don't read a dictionary cover to cover. I think I said like the first 70 pages or so. I don't even know how to, let's see, 52. And even that's really inflated because it includes a lot of like specific examples. And you can use Control F with this a lot. So what are we up to? We're on page 72. So draw phase, cards, attributes. Yeah, like so, once you get into here, it starts getting a little more so like reference as opposed to like how to play. This is more like look up stuff and define and definitions really. So yeah, so here's a lot of it. Again, wouldn't recommend reading this cover to cover. I would recommend, reading it, every couple of weeks as you're learning the game. Read the first chunk again. Maybe spend like an hour. It might be a little more than that, but you can kind of skip. I have these like sections that are like blue or green or examples or specific stuff. That stuff you can more so skim and come back to as a situation arises. But I would have this bookmarked. I'd use Control F to find key terms, key questions that come up. But I think as you're learning the game, learning this is having this handy and revisiting a lot is very helpful. All right, so we have jump here. I wish there wasn't all the Jedi game going. Doesn't look like it. So what I'll do is I think I'm going to wrap up the stream here now. I've got some other things to do. But hopefully a good first section of cracking open packs, talking a little bit about cards, giving an overview, building a dark side deck, and then I'll try to organize a game with someone who would be patient. The tricky part is with all the Jedi format, you post a table and it looks blind. See, like you can see here, casual games, you can see who's posting it, the user. So you can kind of say, hey, someone join my game, specific, who would be patient. Whereas in the leagues, which is all that Ella Jedi is, you can't really add that description and you don't really know who you're going to get paired up with. You could always say, hey, sorry, I might play a little slow. Worst case scenario, you're playing and you got to concede because you're running out of time or you got to go. So it's not the end of the world. That's why there's timers on here to make sure that people are aware of what's like the maximum time this could take. And then if you're just kind of transparent at the beginning of the game, be like, hey, I'm not going to play fast. If they might say, all right, maybe we should just cancel the game and no one loses. That's not something crazy either. All right, so we've been going here for exactly an hour. I'll wrap it up here for episode 1 or part 1 of JNAP's How to Play Star Wars CCG video series. Look for more to come. I'll try to do these gradually and then, like I said, weave them together to hopefully be a valuable resource for people who want to learn the game and get better at it even. All right, thanks for watching.